once again, welcome. Another episode. This one's going to be pretty simple. I don't know how long I'll drag it out like I normally do, but here we go. A lot of people don't know this, or they do know it and they don't know what we're talking about. Some of us guys have been around a while. And you don't work on your bike very much, but all of a sudden, and you're a long ways away from Jamie or Mike Seastrom or me or Judge, Dwayne Judge or Mike DeGrood or anybody else that has any knowledge about them, Berlin Bob for that matter. And all of a sudden your bike starts stalling, stop signs, or just stop, quits running, traffic lights, whatever, it quits running. A lot of times, especially if your bike hasn't been ridden a lot, or you haven't kept maintenance up like you should to know what you're looking at and stuff, it's a real simple fix. You'll think, oh my gosh, now what? I've got all this money tied up in my machine. And yeah, some of us really do. Some of the bikes just have more problems than others. Kind of as the old joke goes, what day was it built on, Monday or Friday? This one here is dealing with the rubber cap on the throttle body. And this is it here. And that's a good one. I don't use them because they're made of rubber and they eventually crack and deteriorate from ozone or whatever, or the heat for that matter. And that'll go bad and it'll start leaking air and be a vacuum loss, and it's back behind here on your throttle body. And then I usually replace it with one of these vinyl caps and maybe a pinch clamp if I've got one small enough to fit it. I think that's the right cap. If not, I got another one I can put on there. But I'll show you where it's at, and it's real simple to get to. And we'll deal with moving around and getting that done. So, this is the cover you gotta get off to get to it. Throttle body's behind there. These are actually a lot tighter originally. I took them off just before I turned the camera on, just to see what kind of fight I was going to have after the fiasco I had with that brake caliper and the button heads wouldn't come out. And yes, again, these are button head bolts. These guys, and I just hate them, but they look nice. They do what they're supposed to, but man, if they got orange Loctite, they can be a real bear. That, or if they're going in aluminum threads anywhere, they'll also lock up inside there, which is what happened on that caliper. Okay, so now I'm at the air cleaner. I gotta get this plate off. I suppose if you had really skinny fingers and long needle nose, you might be able to do it without getting this off, but we'll do it anyway. This plate, as you can notice, is a product of Jamie and Marty's Atlanta EH. And their kit, plus any of the kits that were out there at one time for this air cleaner, to replace the factory one. If you still got the factory one, I highly recommend you get it off of there. The factory air cleaner, one, you can't find any filters. And if you do, they're going to be like $100 because they're really rare. And the air filter for our bikes were only for our bikes. There is no crossover. So that air filter, and I've got like 3 or 4 of them, not new by far. They're old and used. I got them just in case somebody decided to make new ones. The backing plate, this piece here from the factory, is plastic. So this is the new, or the updated backing plate. This is Jamie and Marty's, Atlanta Yates'. It's all aluminum, and it's been whatever. It's been carved out to make it work, and it works great. This is the old plate. If you get your air cleaner off and you got one of these behind here, obviously this is not the right, you won't see this air filter. This is the K&N adapter, the new filter that comes with the new backing plate for the air filter. This is the old one, and hopefully you find this behind the cleaner cover. You're going to find this with this and this. If not, if you don't find that, what you're going to find is probably this. This is the factory air filter. Like I said, you can't find them anywhere. There's none. And if you do, it's going to be several $100s. Now, if you're into restoring your X to perfect show condition, which I don't know anybody that does that. Pretty much everybody I know rides them, but I'm sure there are guys out there that are trying to keep them bone stock and don't ride them at all. So you may find this under here, mounted on this, like that. This is a problem. This warps because it's right against the heads, and it's all that heat in there, it warps. And once it does that, it'll start leaking vacuum. And when it leaks the vacuum, it's going to start dying off also, besides this cap issue. So get this updated air cleaner. You want this. You want this badly. You know, your bike will run so much better, and maybe even a little power out of it too, because it breathes real well. Okay, we got that resolved. So next we want to get this part off. When the camera was messing with me and tipping over sideways and looking at the sky, I don't know how many bikes I've been into. I would say at least two Excelsiors I've gotten into, and all of these bolts, every one of them, including the bolts that go in through here, have been loose. And what I think happens is they come loose from vibrating. And man, they were just running like crap, you know, vacuum leaks all over the place. So if you're not going to change the cap, this is another way just to check your bolts. Make sure they're in there tight. Save you a lot of headaches, a lot of worrying stress-wise. I'd have this on my rack, but I got a little baby Honda on there right now, and I don't feel like moving it. When you put this thing back together, you also want to be careful on not breaking the ears off the throttle body. I did that once. Okay. That guy's loose, but he doesn't want to come out of the way. Now, behind this backing plate is spacers to the jugs. You can see that. That's a spacer there. And then there's a smaller spacer here, and they both go to the jug. Know that, because when you put it back together, you got to have them. It won't sit flush or tight to the throttle body. And I got a feeling my spacers are going to be pretty greasy because I got a valve cover leak on the front, and I have yet to take care of that problem. It doesn't leak enough to warrant attention in my book, but it leaks enough that it makes the chrome ugly, paint ugly, that kind of thing. See, there's a spacer, and yep, it's oily. big spacer goes to the front jug, and a little one goes to the back jug, and that just fell out of the back hopper. And there we are. Okay, we got a, what is that? That's a temperature sensor, if I remember right. It's not a mass sensor. And there's the plug where it goes. This here plug from the factory goes there. And as you can see, I got a vinyl one on there. Vinyl seems to behave a lot better in there. It takes the heat and temperatures and all that stuff. See how she's moving around a little bit? That's because I got there's these 4 studs, if you've seen them. They all sink in here back into the intake manifold. But that's it. If this rubber plug is still on that port, that is a test port that, I don't know, I guess there's some testing that can be done through that port for vacuum and stuff. It's not exactly easy access if you're going to work on it. But that's where you could possibly read vacuum issues. Anyway, this rubber plug is actually rubber, and it dries out. It takes a lot of heat. Ozone eats it, and it cracks, and it's a source for a leak. And that's it right there. You can see it. That plug I got on there is a vinyl blue one. And that's pretty much it. And I'll put this thing back together. That's our little tip for today, and I hope you all learned a little bit about it and get a little more courage. Another access point to it without taking your air cleaner off and all this shenanigans is you can take the tank off, but I know a lot of people are nervous about taking their tank off because they don't want to ding it and stuff like this. So there's another way of doing it, and takes a little more time this direction, but it's not more difficult. It's not more difficult this way. It just takes a little more time. And that's the throttle body right there, if you didn't know what you're looking at. And back there is the intake manifold, and it's got 2 injectors in the manifold. I don't know if you've seen it, but my gasket's a little bit chewed up here, and I really don't feel like buying a new one. But it's not going into the flow of air. It's on the outside, so I'm thinking I'm going to be okay. I was seriously debating it. There's another gasket back here where it connects to the intake manifold. I think I'm just going to put it back together. It's not wrinkled, and it's not cracked to where the airflow is. Should be fine. All right, I skipped that, and I went back. I took it back apart. This is your air idle controller right here. There's a wire stuck in it. You might be able to see it up there. And it does adjust for cold start like a choke would. And it lets air by. In here there's a port that lets air by as it needs to keep it running. The computer's monitoring and it'll keep it running. I can't take it off now because to replace the air idle controller, you got to take the tank off to get to it. Well, I guess you actually don't. You could probably pull the throttle body off and get to it. But there's a couple screws in it, and that's all there is to it. I'm not sure that there's any of those left, and here's the throttle control, throttle position sensor. Those, last I knew, there is no more of those, so make sure you take care of that. Don't be beating it up or nothing. I know of one bike that has eliminated the air idle control, and on cold start, he just warm it up good at a higher RPM, around 1,500 to 1,000, and then once it got warmed up, there was no need, so he just eliminated it. I think I heard one guy that did it. He plugged this hole, but I'm not sure on all that. But that's what that is. That's your air idle control. Here's your throttle control, your throttle position sensor, and this is the plug. To clean this, though, you just take some carburetor cleaner up there and shoot it up in there. Sometimes it gets carboned up. Sometimes it gets some dirt in it. Whatever, You'll be fine. All right, like I said, I've taken apart a few of these, and I found all these bolts and studs loose. And all these bolts and studs or screws loose here. When you put it back together, you make sure, right, everything's flush and down flat on all these surfaces. This is where the gasket is. That's the intake manifold back there. I'm hoping you can see this. And then once that is all lined up to go and everything, then make sure they're snug, not tight. You're going to strip them. Just snug. That way you don't have to worry about them coming apart later or loosening up later. Another way to tell behind the plate, which you can't see real good, is if there's any gaps in here. This is a little bit tricky here, but like I said, a lot of this just takes patience and time. You don't want to get yourself in trouble. Alrighty. Alright, next we want to do is get the spacers put back in there. This spacer here has to go behind. This is a big one, remember? And if you got it going right, it'll just slide in there. If you don't have a set of T-handles, I really recommend it, but you can do it with that regular Allen heads. T-handles would make life so much easier. All right, and then this little spacer with this little longer bolt, they go back here. And those will strip out also. The jugs are aluminum, the shell is on them. So, you know, just be nice, snug them up. I've had to put an insert, the threaded inserts we use out of Las Vegas. I'm sorry, I can't remember them off the top of my head. I'm not a fan of K&N air filters, but there's nothing else out there. Everybody, oh, look at that. The design of the K&N air filter was for high performance racing. And it was like race on Sunday and rebuild the rest of the week. So they weren't too concerned about long-term dirt and stuff. There we go. But we don't have a lot of choice. I have seen K&N air filters create problems on different vehicles, mostly Power Strokes, where they took the air filter off and there's actually lots of dirt in the plenum into the intake. The one I saw was almost a cup. It was just unbelievable. A cup of dust. But that was the thing to do, in that guy's opinion, was to, yeah, we're in there. We got it seated. Cool. In the day, and I'm sure there's still people that are doing it, that are putting K&Ns on everything just to get that little half horsepower or 10 horsepower, whatever it is, not realizing how much dirt is actually getting by. In opening mine just now, I was very surprised how dirty it wasn't. normally you can run your finger in there and you're going to find some dirt in there, but you'll also find dirt behind a regular paper filter too, so I guess it's all up for debate. Oh yeah, yours might have this top air cleaner. I forgot about that. May have a vinyl ring around this edge. I took mine off, mostly because it was there and it didn't do anything. So I took that piece of vinyl off, and now it's just an air cleaner without it, and I don't know that it doesn't hurt anything, obviously, because it's just there for looks mostly. And I think maybe to protect the edges when you set it down on a bench or something, you don't have to worry about it getting scratched up. 61,000 miles on my bike, and things are kind of scratched up here and there. Not that big a deal. I have been known to put Loctite on all my screws and bolts, especially on the tin work like this. I'm not on this time because there's still enough on the threads to hold it there. Now watch, I'll take it for a ride and one of these screws will disappear. I also remembered the name of the insert, like if you were to strip those screws going into the jugs. If you just strip one of these in here, remember the big spacer over here and then the little spacer over here. The name of that company is TimeCert, and they got a quality product. It's a real good product, TimeCert. I've used them on several different places on my bike and several other bikes. Highly recommend them. What's that other insert? A common one that everybody used for years and years and years. I can't remember it, but TimeCert's the only one I've seen that works and stays put, especially on Excelsior Hendersons. All right, everybody, that's this week. I have been fooling around a little bit with Excelsior Henderson long distance with my buddy Phil in Pennsylvania. We're trying to figure out a way to make that trike he's got steer easier. And we came up with an idea, and then we sent it to Phil, and we forgot about this fender. The fender moves up and down, and the system we had designed runs off the rigid here. And the design of our system was going to put it right into the fender if the tire moved up and down. So we're trying to come up with something better. Anybody's got any ideas for Phil on how to assist with steering on that trike? Let me know, or let Phil know if you know him. He wants to get it all prettied up and ready to go for the 25th this year. And I've kind of been pushing him, not obnoxiously, but I'd like to see it up to spec like Jumper. Probably always imagined it. Jumper is one of the biggest guys on changing these out, telling everybody to check them, make sure they weren't cracked, these caps on that vacuum port. And that is always coming out of his mouth. The first thing almost, if your bike was cutting out of stop signs and stuff like that. There you go for this week. Or this episode. I haven't been doing a weekly. I hope you learned something, or at least got an idea. Doesn't mean you have to do it exactly the way I did it. But that's where it's at, in case you're wondering. I still have, or I'm still offering anybody that wants a copy of the parts manual, the parts lister thing. I'll be more than happy to burn them one. It shows all the parts, where they're at, and all that stuff. Makes everything easier. But I'll burn you one, and all you have to do is pay for postage. You don't even have to pay for the disc. I got a whole pile of blank discs ready to burn. And looking at this, I just realized you've probably seen this down here. That is not a factory shift linkage. Mine's stripped out down here. So I found one, and it's a custom aftermarket J&P. It was made for a Harley, so I had to tap and die it to make it fit the Excelsior Henderson stuff. It works great. In fact, actually, it makes my shifters. My shift's a lot softer and a lot shorter throw. I'm only throwing like that far now compared to where I was throwing way up here. There you go, guys. Enjoy.